evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to the awards of the 2021 Stephen Spender Prize for Poetry in Translation. I'm Charlotte Ryland. I'm director of the Stephen Spender Trust, and Stephen Spender Trust is the charity that founded the prize in 2004. This is the second time that we've held the awards virtually. And when I think back to the planning phases this time last year, I think we were very much wondering at that stage what it would be like to hold this event virtually, which previously we had held in person in central London. And I think we were concerned that it might turn into sort of a lesser experience. What we realized when we ran that event last year was that it's actually a completely different thing. You can't compare a Zoom webinar or a YouTube live stream to the warm human experience of meeting together to listen to poetry in translation and to chat over drinks. What happened instead was something different. The awards became as international as the prize itself. Poets, translators, and readers tuned in from around the world, and the recordings meant that people of all ages could participate equally, regardless of where they were in the country. And also that the videos remained on the website for all to see. There's a particularly memorable video from last year of a 5-year-old reading his translation of a Polish poem about a hammerhead shark. And I know I'm not the only person who turns to that video on YouTube, and I need a bit of cheering up. So this is even more the case this year. We're really pleased to be joined for this event by people from all over the world. And as well as hearing from the winners and commendees this evening, we're also going to hear from teachers whose students have participated in the prize, and from writers whose poems have been translated and are amongst the winning translated poems. So this year's prize has been our biggest yet, both in terms of linguistic scope and the number of entries. There are a record 21 languages amongst the winning and highly commended poems, ranging from languages learnt in our schools to those spoken in homes and playgrounds across the UK. There's space for both of these languages in the Stephen Spender Trust, in the Stephen Spender Prize. Neither one is privileged over the other. We're really grateful to all of the entrants, not just the winners, but everybody for bringing these languages and poems into our orbit. For me, the Stephen Spender Prize is about inclusion and about opening outwards. It shows a different version of the UK from the one that we often see these days, especially. And we're really glad that you're all part of that this evening. Growing the prize in this way has been possible because the Stephen Spender Trust team has grown. And I'm really grateful to my excellent colleagues, Stacey, Rosie, Jamie, and Gemma, who've worked really hard on everything happening at the Trust this year, and in particular on tonight's event. I'm grateful also to all the freelance practitioners that we work with and to all who support our work. This year's prize is generously supported by the Rothschild Foundation, the Polonsky Foundation, the Old Possums Practical Trust, the John S. Cohen Foundation, and the Björnson and Prodan Foundation. And we send our sincere thanks tonight from everybody involved. It's also been a great pleasure to work with our 4 judges this year: Sascha Aurora Akhtar, Khairani Barokka, Daljit Nagra, and Samantha Schnee. And I'm pleased to say that they're all here tonight, tuning in from various parts of the country, and in Samantha's case, from Texas, to join with me in celebrating the winners. And each judge will be introducing one category. So I'd like to start by inviting Daljit Nagra to join us.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hello, hi Daljit. Daljit is an award-winning poet and broadcaster. He's also lecturer in creative writing at Brunel University and chair of the Royal Society of Literature. So Daljit, before we hear about the winners of the youth prizes, which is how we're starting the evening, could you tell us a bit about the role that translation has played in your own work?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been involved in various translation projects, including a version of mine of the Indian epic, The Ramayana, which took me a couple of years. I think the first thing is you already have a text that's established. So you have that, you don't have that anxiety. When you start a new poem, you don't know where you're going to go. And you can come out of your own ego and serve the world of another poem. And that kind of service is wonderful, because if you can do good translation, you are equal to the best writers out there who write the original poem, because that service is of a higher creative level, or as high as an original composition. I know we sometimes overrate original composition, but I mean, to me, great translation is the same as a great writer.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's a really good message for especially the young translators in our audience to take home. Has it fed into your own writing as well, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So through translation, I think I developed a whole set of new skills, and I felt them come into play in my own writing. By writing epics, by working with a Dutch poet, a French poet, and various people, I've picked up different ways of writing because you go inside someone else's world. And I've noticed that, on my next book's fifth book, that the fourth and fifth books have used different techniques I hadn't used before. So it's replenishing, it's reviving, and it's broadening of an experience.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. So let's move on to hearing a bit about what the experience was like for you this year. This is your second year of judging. Could you say a little bit in particular about the youth prizes?
I mean, we didn't get on at all. We had a terrible time. Okay, I'm being ironic. No, we had a great time. We had a great time mainly because we had such a variety, and I think you mentioned earlier, Charlotte, the linguistic variety this year is more so than even last year. So for me, it was a great pleasure, and for all of us, and a great education. And there were kind of one or two challenges that the broad diversity of language brings is you're trying to compare poems from different traditions, from different cultures, different types of creativity, alongside different historical periods. So in a sense, it's a kind of, the judging process is of course flawed, and we try to do the best in the 21st century from where we live and respond to the poems. And it was quite a lot of mature entries, I thought. A lot of mature poems being picked, not entries, but a lot of mature, serious poems being picked by even the sort of under 14 category, alongside the really playful poems. So I think we're all really impressed with that. So that was a kind of really enjoyable experience. And I enjoyed the commentaries as well. I thought the commentaries, it was worth mentioning, that there were so many commentaries which really focus on technical aspects, whether it be about rhythm or word choices. And often you could go back to those if you weren't sure about the kind of poem to just see what the thinking process was. So that was an enriching engagement as well for us. And we did talk about commentaries here and there in our final selection of winners. So
absolutely,
good hope for the future, I think, for translation, that so many young people are writing so exciting and brilliantly. The future of translation poetry is. We're an island nation, aren't we, Charlotte? We need to be forced outside of our minds. We need the pleasure of translation as well as reading it from each other.
Absolutely. So yeah, we need that more than ever before. And after the event this evening, everybody in our audience, you'll be sent part of our prize booklet, which includes a beautiful commentary from Daljit, where you talk about that, don't you, Daljit, about that kind of the isolation and how important poetry and translation is for crossing those borders and so on. So let's move on to Hia, who has won our youth prizes this year. Daljit, would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, so I'm really sorry if I murder any of your names. I'm going to try and do my best. So I'm going to start with 14 and under, highly commended. So I'll just mention three names with the poem titles. So first is Elul Karakaluka, who's translated Spring Idleness, extract by Bahar Sarashlugu from Turkish. Katrina Fong, To Love the Lotus, which was written by Zhu Dunyi, the ancient Chinese poem. Mia Harris, In a Pit Like a Bear, which is an extract from Guillaume Apollinaire, from, of course, the French. Then the winners, 14 under, Matilda Hardman, with All the Birds, by August Heinrich Hoffmann von Fallersleben, from German. Adeline Go, The Temple by the Stars, which is written by Li Bei, from ancient Chinese. Millie Farrell, AA, by Christian Barnard, from the French. Okay, moving on to 16 under, the highly commended Karolina Kukhta, or To Kachalov's Dog, by Sergei Yesenin, from Russian. Sarah McLaren, Masses, by Cesar Vallejo, from the Peruvian Spanish. Rosie Evans, Folk Singer, which is by Elizabeth Perez Zinzun, from the Mexican Spanish. And then the winners of the 16 under category are Stephen Nicholas for Instant Houses by Ewan Lloyd from Welsh, Maddie Stoll, 25th of October 1994, Modena, by Fatima Batouche from Italian. Iona Mandal for Calcutta's Jesus by Narendranath Chakraborty from Bengali. And then 18 and Under, Highly Commended. Marco Chung for Funeral of the Flower, which was written by Zhao Zhujin from Chinese, I think. Lilia Foster for Underdevelopment Problems by Nicholas Guillen from the Cuban Spanish. And Chloe O'Connor for Talking by Chen Chang from Chinese. And then our final three winners from 18 and Under, Doga Kigun for Last Will by Nazim Hikmet from Turkish. Jasmine Hardy, They Are Unbeaten by the Rain by Kenji Maezawa from Japanese. And the final winner, Jahan Debalaig for O Iran, My Bejeweled Land, which is an extract from the original in Farsi by Farooq Faruzad. And there we have it. Well done, all of you. And sorry if you missed out, but try next year, because we had so many fantastic poems that just couldn't be put in, because we can only have 3 winners, 3 runners up. So thank you very much.
My name is Eylül, and I translated a poem from Turkish.
I'm Katrina Fong, and I translated a poem from classical Chinese to English.
My name is Adli, and I have translated a poem from Mandarin.
I'm Matilda, and I translated a poem from German.
I really like this poem because it gives an insight into what Istanbul,
yeah, it's on
a
mute
city
for you.
most
I'm just
quickly
trying to
viewed
pipe
from
it
the
through
ground,
now.
looks like from the perspective of a seagull.
I chose to translate this poem because I thought it very accurately depicted what people valued at the time through the poet's musings about how much he loves lotuses.
I found that the most interesting part of the poem was where the narrator attempts to pick up in the sky, yet cannot, as it is so far away.
I chose the poem All the Birds Are Already There because it is about spring and renewal, and I was charmed by its childlike innocence combined with its uplifting message.
My poem is by Li Bai and called The Temple by the Stars. Against the blissful starry night stands a temple which can be seen across the lands, hundreds of feet high and dangerously tall. It seems as if it is about to fall.
All the Birds Are Already There by August Heinrich Hoffmann von Wallersleben. All the birds are already there, all birds, all. What's singing, making music, whistling, chirping, trilling? Spring wants to march in now. She comes with song and sound.
My name is Rosie, and I translated a poem from Spanish.
My name is Carolina, and I've translated a poem from Russian.
My name is Sarah, and I chose to translate a poem from Spanish.
My name is Maddie, and I translated a piece of spoken word from Italian.
My name is Stefan, and I translated a poem from Welsh.
My name is Iona Mandal, and I translated a poem from Bangla.
I chose to translate this poem because I enjoy its natural imagery and multisensory elements.
When I first heard the poem, I really loved the musicality of the poem and how the poet was able to communicate his complex feelings through such a simple and sincere conversation with Jim, the dog.
This poem was written during the Spanish Civil War, and I chose to translate it because it's a very moving piece of poetry.
I really like the poem because of its message, and I also think the poet's performance of it was very emotive.
The most challenging part of the translation was when I had to think of an English word to be used for the title. This was because the name Tai Enos is a Welsh concept which has no English equivalent that I know of. It is literally a house built in one night, and I chose instant houses because this feels slightly modern and therefore ties in with the second half of the poem.
I chose to translate the poem for its simplicity yet hidden mirth, its vividness and description, and universal appeal.
By Fatima Batouche. 25th of October 1994, Modena. My mother is in labour. She is having contractions. There is no one with her to hold her hand, no one to translate for her the concepts of a language that feels strange, that doesn't resemble any idea of family, and never has.
Tai Enos by Iwan Lloyd. Instant houses. An ice-age litter of smooth stones lay scattered along the river's bank, the waste and spoils of the ice flow's hammer which shaped the valleys year by year, and with this waste our ancestors built a regular cottage on the river's turn, stone by stone through day and night, lit a fire before the landowner could knock it all down.
Kolkata's Jishu by Nirendranath Chakravarti. Kolkata's Jesus. No red light at the signal, yet the turbulent pace of the city of Kolkata came to an abrupt halt. Adjusting violently, taxis and private cars, three-wheelers, tiger-stamped double-deckers. "He is gone!" they screamed.
My name's Chloe and I translated a poem from Mandarin Chinese.
My name's Lilia Foster and I translated a poem from Spanish.
I'm Marco and I translated a poem from Chinese.
My name is Doa and I translated a poem from Turkish.
My name is Jahan Dubalaig and I translated my poem from Farsi to English.
My name is Jasmine and I translated the poem from Japanese.
I really like this poem because I think language-wise it's relatively straightforward, but it expresses the complexity of emotion and desperation to connect with others that the speaker feels.
Being interested in Cuban history, I was drawn to this poem because of the poet's references to various important Cuban events and figures.
I chose to translate this poem because I was fascinated by how the sickly girl's pessimism depicted in third person suddenly and almost unnoticeably transforms into the first person narrator at the end of the poem.
I chose to translate this poem because the heavy longing for one's native country really resonated with me. Nazım Hikmet skillfully combines images of death and injustice with the beauty of rural Turkey.
I translated this poem because the poet is a favourite of my mum's, and the poem itself gave me a corridor into the Iran of the 1960s, which is an area of great interest for me.
I chose this poem because I think it's important. I think what we've noticed in recent years is to appreciate the unsung heroes in everyday life. And I think this is what the poet gets across.
Last Will by Nazım Hikmet. Comrades, if I am not fated to see that day, I mean, if I should die before our liberation, take me and bury me in a village cemetery in Anadolu. Let the farmhand Osman, ordered shot by Master Hassan, lie next to me on one side, and the martyr Aisha, who bore a child to the land near the rye field and died within 40 days, lie on the other.
Emerze por Gohar by Furukh Farrokhzad. I am victorious. I have now been made official. I have ornamented myself with a name and a card of identity, and my existence has been ratified with a number. So all hail the number 678, issued from Sector 5, Tehran.
They are unbeaten by the rain, by Kenji Miyazawa. They are unbeaten by the rain, triumphant against the wind, superior to the snow of winter and heat of summer. They are strong of body, rid of selfishness, unyielding to bouts of anger, with silent smiles always etched on their faces.
Webinars build on a pilot series that we ran earlier this year with teachers in Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. And what we did was we realised there's three groups of teachers. There's lots of groups of teachers, but three main groups of teachers: MFL teachers, primary school teachers, and also English teachers who the prize might be of particular interest to, but each of these groups has their own needs. So we're running three different strands, very much tailored to those groups. The second thing that we're offering is that we're giving schools the opportunity to book a Stephen Spender Prize workshop. This will be led by one of our wonderful team of facilitators, and it can happen in person. The translator could come into school, or it can happen online. The translator can be beamed into the classroom. So it's really exciting, and every year we're providing more things to encourage more youth entries in more languages.
Great, thank you. And so, as you can tell, working with teachers is increasingly important to the work that we do. And one of the things that we did last year was to start to recognise teachers who engage really enthusiastically with the prize. And so we're pleased to be able to highlight tonight 3 teachers and their departments who've engaged lots of their pupils in translating poems and entering the prize. And Stacey is going to announce those teachers now.
Yeah, very much so. Teachers are very much key to our plan for expanding the prize even further. So the first group of teachers is Celeste Robillard and her colleagues at the Holt School in Wokingham. We then have Liz McWatt, Joe Sykes and Jen Sargent at the Loretto Grammar School in Altrincham. And finally, we have Cara Blyman, Olivia Sennen-Saib, Martin Chimalecki and Vienna Goddard at the Swire Chinese Language Centre, which is part of the Harris Federation in London. And we're now going to hear from 3 teachers from those 3 different schools.
Hi, my name is Cara Blyman. I'm the Primary Mandarin Project Consultant for the Harris Federation of Schools in London. We chose one simple poem for students to translate with just 20 words, but with lots of room for creative interpretations. And I'm really proud that one of our 11-year-old pupils was commended in the under-14s category. In primary, MFL activities can often be focused on simple communicative language games, so preparing for the prize was a great opportunity to give students a taste of what future language study and being a linguist is really like.
Hi, my name's Joe Sykes. I'm a teacher of modern languages at Loretto Grammar School in Altrincham. We were delighted by the number of students we had participate in this year's Stephen Spender Prize, including lots at Key Stage 3. We included poetry in our Year 8 French scheme of work, including getting the students to write their own calligram and looking at Jacques Prévé's Déjeuner du Matin, and it seemed a logical follow-on from this to get students to participate in the Stephen Spender Prize. We were certainly delighted by the number that took part this year and hope for even more entries this year so that we can celebrate our students' work by entering them into the competition.
Hello, my name is Celeste, and last summer I took part in the Stephen Spender Prize competition with my classes in French and in Spanish at school. I think what the students took away from this project was that they could do something different, they could really choose what they were working on, and that idea of choice was really positive for them, and I think they really appreciated that. I also think that they really appreciated that they could use the language they speak at home or they speak with their extended family, for example. It was good for them to do something that is not just related to the language they learn at school, for example, French or Spanish. And as a teacher, I really felt like I could connect more with my classes. So I would really recommend taking part in the project.
Thank you so much to those 3 teachers and their departments, and indeed to all the teachers who've engaged in the prize this year. It's been really great to be in touch with you and to see the work that you're doing with your pupils and to hear about the enthusiasm for poetry translation that's spreading. As I may have mentioned a couple of times already, the number of entrants that we have to the prize has been rising year on year, as has the breadth of quality. And we've been thinking for a couple of years about what we can change in order to mark and reward that quality. And so what we've done this year is we've introduced a new category of commendations, so that we're able to reward more translators and to really show what quality there is amongst the entries. So to talk through the commendation category, I'm pleased to introduce Samantha Schnee, our judge. Samantha joined the judging panel for the first time this year. She's the founding editor of Words Without Borders and a prolific translator in her own right. So before we look at the names of all of the wonderful commendees this evening, Samantha, I wanted to talk to you about your own translation work. So you've translated numerous novels, but you've just recently had your first collection of poetry translated by Mexican poet Jeanette Clariond. And I was wondering if you could just say a little bit about how that experience was different from the prose translations you'd previously published and what sort of insight that gave you into the judging process of the prize.
Thank you, Charlotte. Absolutely. So this is the book here. And I think it's really important to note that Jeanette herself is a translator, and she's translated the complete works of Elizabeth Bishop into Spanish. And it's important to know that writers around the world are in the practice of translating English language writers into their own languages. It's very common, and writers that we know like Haruki Murakami, Javier Marias, Czesław Miłosz, the great poet from Poland, they're all in a practice of translating and doing exactly what Daljit was talking about before, which is a sort of apprenticeship as a writer to, as he said, get inside another writer's head is a way to hone your own craft. And translation is writing. So for me, translating this book, it was a great experience because I was working with another translator. And she understood very much the nuances of language. And when I had doubts, she was able to guide me and help me in a way that made it a lot of fun. And I think that when I was reading the entries for this year's contest, the ones that really stood out to me were the ones where it seemed like the translators were having fun. They were just enjoying themselves, playing with language. And I think that would be probably one of my, I guess, words of advice to translators, particularly young translators who might not feel comfortable going too far from the source text, is that sometimes you do need to take a little bit of poetic license to be able to make a translation work in English. And not to adhere too closely to the source text, because sometimes that can just come out a bit clunky in the English language, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great advice. So we're going to look at all of the lists of commendees for the various categories. They're appearing on your screen now. While we do so, I wanted to share with you, so I've already mentioned the prize booklet, which includes a commentary about the entries and about the experience of judging from each of our judges, which will be shared with you later this evening. And Samantha starts her commentary with a beautiful metaphor that I wanted to share with everybody. She says, "You could say that reading 1,000 poems in 5 weeks is a bit like drinking from a fire hose. Consuming something good for you, even vital for survival, but in such vast quantity that you begin to wonder how much of a good thing is too much." And I should hasten to say, Samantha, that you do go on to talk about that experience, that fire hose experience of being a very positive one. Could you perhaps just share one final thought about something that particularly struck you about the experience, about the judging experience?
I loved discovering new poets through the process. In every category there were some discoveries for me, and I think kind of going off the beaten track, so to speak, like some of our young winners did. The young woman who was attracted by the Italia's Got Talent piece that she saw, and I also like the idea of looking at spoken poetry. I think historically poetry has really been a spoken art throughout most of human history, and that's why rhyme has been such a big part of it. And it was lovely to be able to recognize some spoken poets this year in the prizes as well.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm not sure if we've seen all of the commendees' names, but I think we will nonetheless move on to the open category. The open category is the category of the prize that is for all entrants aged 19 and above. And I'm pleased to welcome our judge, Khairani Barokka, who's going to talk in particular about this category. Oka, hello, Oka.
Hi,
hi, Oka is an Indonesian writer, translator, and artist based in the UK. And this year she published her second poetry collection, Ultimatum Orangutan, with 9 Arches Press. Oka also worked with us this year to curate a booklet of poems in Indonesian languages. So again, last year, when we started to develop our virtual resources, we started a collection of e-booklets in different languages, which are aimed at young people, people of all ages interested in translating poems, but maybe not having access to a range of poems. And we wanted to add some Indonesian language poems this year, and Oka worked with us to curate that booklet. Could you tell us a little bit about how you approached that task, Oka, of selecting just a handful of poems from right across that large country with so many languages?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you so much to you and to Stephen Spender Trust for the initiative. It was fun, honestly. Indonesia has over 700 languages, so I felt I had to set myself some boundaries, considering it was an e-booklet. But I really wanted to highlight the work being done by women poets. So the entire e-booklet is actually all women translate, all women poets. And I wanted to highlight languages from Indonesia other than Indonesian or Bahasa Indonesia. So we have Balinese and Javanese, which are perhaps more known in mainstream circles in the UK. But there's also indigenous languages from East Indonesia, and I really enjoyed also how different they were in terms of some being very abstract and emotional, and others being prose poetry that told this fascinating, intricate, violent narrative about an anthropomorphic knife who saves the woman who is its owner. So it was great fun.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful collection, and hopefully just the beginning of our interactions with Indonesian poetry. Okay, could you tell us a little bit about your experience of judging, in particular the open category this year, and then we'll find out who's won.
Yeah, so I think you can tell that Daljit and Samantha and I had a lot of fun drinking from the fire hose to go. And it was, I think it was just so eye-opening in terms of getting our gears working as writers and translators ourselves, in terms of technique and connecting concepts and forms that we might not have come across in the languages that we usually work in, or just the ability to read such a breadth of work from across so many different styles of writing was really special. And I think that particularly in the open category, we ended up being really drawn to people who had taken on quite intricate challenges that translators know to be difficult, in terms of, for instance, translating from a poem that already has a very specific sculptural form on the page, or a poem that conveys an emotion like solitude through form, but also then provided us with this wonderful judge's commentary about the poet's life that contextualize the solitude, or taking on a topic that is really quite serious as violence from the far right, and being able to convey all of these things in English. So I think that you can see the work that the translators put in when you consider, for instance, that the source text was a performance poem, but then you also have the additional sort of that point where you simply enjoy the poem as a poem, and you realize that the translation is also a piece of creative writing on its own, and you kind of stop thinking about the technicalities and you just get immersed in it.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful sort of whistle-stop tour of the of some of the commended and winning poems, and so let's find out now who they are, and then we'll hear some of their readings.
Yes, so first time entrant commendations, we have Christina Lucasi, who translated a poem entitled Have You Ever Heard of Little Dwarf Dwimble, originally written in German by Christina Tropper and Alexander Smutny Tropper. And then you have Arthur Allen's translation of Maria Wine's I Have Barely Had Time to Build Your Name, originally in Swedish. And then Harriet McAllen's In the Twilight of Life, a translation of a poem originally in Moroccan French by Abdelatif Labi. Highly commended, we have Susanna V. Evans, who translated Tristan Corbier's poem Sailors, an extract from it, originally in French. We have Robin Munby's translation of Claudia Elena Menendez Fernandez's Falala, originally in Asturian, and Antoinette Fosset's translation of The Hares by H. Terbalkt, originally in Dutch. Finally, we have the winners. So firstly, we have, I'm going to go from third place. So third place is Georgina Collins, who translated Jean-Claude Owono's A Name is Sewn into the Flesh, a Cameroonian writer writing in French. In second place, we have James Garza's translation of Kurobe Setsuko's Room, originally in Japanese. And in first place, we have Harry Mann's translation of Endre Rousset's The Green Tent, originally in Norwegian Bokmål. Congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations, and we'll hear them now.
I'm Christina Lucassi, and I translated an extract from a children's book written in rhyme from German to English.
My name is Arthur Allen, and I translated a poem from Swedish.
My name is Harriet McAlonan, and I translated a poem from French.
This poem was one of two children's books that I translated as part of my translation master's dissertation.
I chose to translate this poem by Maria Wine because of the intimacy of its brevity and the concentration of feeling, all within a palm of the hand-sized piece.
The poem was called Tard dans la vie by Abdelatif Labi. I had heard of Labi and greatly admired his battle for justice and cultural freedom.
Have you ever heard of Little Dwarf Dwimble? He's just twice as big as a tiny thimble. Now some people call him the Pocketable, the teeniest weeniest one possible, the smallest of dwarves that you ever did see, as friendly and helpful, polite as can be.
In the twilight of life, I'll disappear on a bench, suffering receding. I'll extinguish the fire of passions which truncated my journey.
I've barely had time to build your name with the white pebbles of the beach before the endless waves of sea have washed it away. Could I just as easily rip your name from my heart?
My name is Antoinette Fawcett. I've translated a poem from Dutch by the poet H. Terbalkt.
My name is Robin Munby, and I translated a poem from Asturian.
My name is Susanna V. Evans, and I translated a poem from French.
What I loved about this poem was its natural and cultural imagery, its sound, and its compact storytelling.
This poem is like a clarion call for La Lingua Asturiana, the Asturian language, and I enjoyed the challenge of translating it in a way that would keep the Asturian in the spotlight.
The poet Verlaine described Corbière as an amoureux furieux de la mer, a furious lover of the sea. And like Verlaine, I'm drawn to the vigour of Corbière's marine poetry. It's lively, telegraphic, bursting with speech and colloquialisms, and for this reason also notoriously difficult to translate.
The hares. I came through the fields of nothingness, where the hares raced, and the presses standing against tiled walls preserved drawers filled with linen and gold bronze powder.
Falala. Asturian has some beautiful palabras, words, perguapes. Thesauria, yambiotada, migalles. Don't say, in Spanish, that the stars brillan, that birds vuelan, that you want to go de marcha. The stars rescamplan, birds esnalan, and you're off out de felicia, or a correla, if you like.
Sailors. After Tristan Corbière, matelot. Some do come back though, shipwrecks debris, hacked up by pirates, riddled with scurvy, broken, disfigured, adrift, with a limp. One eye down. And you? Do you have one I could pinch?
My name is Georgina Collins and I translated a poem from French. I chose a poem from Cameroonian writer Jean-Claude Awono. As a translator potter, I immediately fell in love with the physicality of his works, where the body feels entwined with language. A name is sewn into the flesh, not shown on the forehead. A name flows in the blood, it grows in the poem, and lying at the heart of all words, a name heralds the meaning that dawns, and steers the poem from within its speech, raising its spectre from the belly of the text. And never will it part from the body of words, but in the crowds of sounds, in the surges of years, it appears, its reign extends the length of the uttering. Departing the lips, it abandons the crown, and joins the people in the collusion of laughter. The distance between name and blood thereafter won't darken the door again.
My name is James Garza, and I translated a poem from Japanese. The poem I chose to translate was Heya, or Room, by Kurobe Setsuko. I really like this poem because it doesn't begin from a position of mastery over the world, or even the small slice of the world that it deals with. The poem becomes a kind of device for investigating the sometimes uneasy ways in which self and world construct each other. It was pitch black when I came in. I held my hands out in front of me, blundered into, I think, a dish. I considered the dish. Round, with rough edges, and cold, hard, as it flinched from my fingertips. Ping! Empty. I imagined it skittering darkly, slowly away.
I'm Harry Mann, and I translated the poem The Green Tent by Endre Rousset. This poem is part of a longer sequence that he has been writing in memory of those who died in the attacks in Oslo and on Utøya Island on July 22nd, 2011. This particular poem draws on the idea of psychogeography, the kind of printing of grief and loss that's happened on the landscape. The green tent, forever changed into some light blue impact boots, forever changed into a Fair Isle sweater that sleeps out in the rain. The mobile on the path, forever changed into the rain-soaked paperback, forever changed into a butterfly earring that slips from a left earlobe. The shattered glasses, forever changed into the extinguished campfire holding its breath. The hair elastic, forever changed into a black snail, changed forever into a ponytail that dropped mid-flight. The microphone on the Utsinen, changed forever into a neglected football, changed forever into the wet, slippery rock agape to this day. The panic changed forever into silence, from the freshwater crayfish and the sleeping princesses. The grief forever changed into vines overflowing with roses. The grief changed into a decade of sleep, while the roses climbed the asphalt, spread along the concrete, floor by floor, forever growing in the broken windows.
Thank you, everybody, for those wonderful readings, and warmest congratulations on your winning, on your prizes and commendations. I want to tell you that you all have the opportunity to find out some more about our first prize winner of the open category, Harry Mann, who is going to be interviewed online tomorrow at 2:30 UK time by Mohini Gupta of Mother Tongue Twisters. And we'll let you know, we'll send you an email later on with the details of that, or you can Google Mother Tongue Twisters to find out about that interview. So one of the things that we love about the Stephen Spender Prize is the opportunity that it gives for living poets to see their works translated into English, often for the first time. And that the prize brings poetry into English for the first time. Holding this event virtually, as I said at the beginning, enables us to involve the writers of the original texts, as well as the translators in the event. And we're really pleased this year that 3 of them have shared with us their experience of being translated. So we're going to hear now from a pair of writers and one of the poets of some of the winning translated poems.
Hello, my name is Christina.
And I'm Alex.
And we two are the authors of Zwoederich der Unkürzbare, a rhyming children's book that was just translated into English and won the Stephen Spender Prize.
Yay! Which is totally exciting. So this is why we want to say two big thank yous. First of all, to Christina Lucasse for extremely awesome work of translating Zwoederich and turning him from the German word Zwoederich to Dwimble, dwarf small as a thimble, and of course the jury for acknowledging the greatness of this translation. The book is about a little dwarf wearing a raspberry hat, walking through the woods, trying to help other animals, but they turn him down. But there's a twist in the story which I will not tell you now.
We are very much excited that Zwoederich der Unkürzbare is now an international award-winning children's book. And we say thank you and bye-bye from Austria.
Bye.
Hello, my name is Fatima Boutouche. I'm the author of the poem 25th October, which I wrote a couple of years ago, remembering my mom's life and story when she moved to Italy as an immigrant mother on her own, and she was 19, 20 years old, and she had me in a little hospital of a small town without having anyone next to her or close to her, not her family, not her friends. So it was very important to me to talk about the struggle of a lot of immigrant women. It was a big pleasure to see my poem translated into English, which for me it means that a lot of people, a lot more people will live that story through my poem and be able to relay or to feel the emotions that I felt and that my mom felt. I really thank you for this opportunity, and I wish good luck to every woman and every person who's alone, far from home.
Thank you for those two very different but wonderful contributions, and thank you to all the poets who are represented tonight through their translations. So we're moving on now to the final part of this evening, which is about our Urdu Spotlight. A few years ago, we introduced a spotlight strand to the prize, which focuses on a language that's spoken widely in the UK. Last year, the spotlight was on Polish, and this year we've been celebrating Urdu. We've been working with brilliant poet and translator Sascha Aurora Akhtar, who's going to join me on screen now. Hi, Sascha. Sascha has curated a booklet of Urdu poems that entrants could choose from, and has also judged the entries, and she's also been working with us on our schools projects, designing resources and running workshops for primary age children. Sascha, it's been a busy year on the Urdu Spotlight for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of overall experience of it?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And as a sort of South Asian immigrant community sort of advocate for Urdu engagement, it's been a really special thing for me to be supported and encouraged to go out and, you know, work with Urdu. So I really thank the Stephen Spender Trust for supporting this and advocating this. As far as the actual prize goes as well, I think one of the most meaningful things to me was to be able to give a platform to one of the, you know, a very large immigrant community, South Asian diaspora in the UK. And it's like, it was like an invitation saying, come, you're welcome, you know, bring your stories, bring your language from your home, bring your, and share this, and you will be heard, you know, validated and celebrated. This was a very meaningful thing for me to be able to do.
Yeah, and we've had some great conversations throughout the year about these issues around home languages and the extent to which there's not currently space for them in the classroom and how we can kind of make that space bigger. And I think one of the really nice things about it, about the work that you've done with the primary school you've been working with in Oxford is you know, one of those classes, I think 27 out of the 30 pupils in the class speak a language other than English at home. And so by, focusing on Urdu, what you're doing is that you're not only showing how exciting it is to have Urdu, you're showing how exciting it is to have another language. And I think we see that as well in our winners, don't we? That they're not all Urdu speakers at home, but they all encountered Urdu through your workshops and through the prize. So shall we hear who has won
Indeed.
the prize?
Absolutely. It is with great pleasure that I announce all these wonderful commendees and winners. And I'd just like to add that it was very difficult. And as far as I was concerned, I wanted to hand out prizes to everyone for this amazing job that everyone did. So in the 10 and under, we have commended Bruno Scott Buck for A Fairy is Bright, Ashwak Nasa for There is a Fairy on Its Own, and Daiminas Grudzinskas, There is One Fairy I Like. And these are all translated from the original Paheli, which is a riddle by Sufi Ghulam Mustafa Tabassum. And just a little note, this is all in the back. So the poem is in my background. As for the winner, we have Safi Robertson. There is a fairy with many colors. Congratulations to everyone. You all did such a good job. In the 14 and under commendees, we have Manal Salman, A Child's Prayer by Allama Iqbal, Alishaba Tariq, Clouds by Sara Shagufta, and Aman Ali Hussain Shaheen with this seminal Fez poem, Speak Up. And in the 14 and same 14 and under, the winner is Fez Adil with If It Is Grief, Let It Torture My Heart by Ahmed Faraz, made popular by Mehdi Hassan. A huge South Asian part of the South Asian community knows this Ranjesh Hi Sahi. So, and thank you to Heba if you're here. And we get to 18 and under. Commended, Aona Mandal, The Bird's Eyes Open by Sara Shagufta, and Demolition by Nahid Rana, and Lucas Omar Ali Hassan, The Face of Your Lord, also by Fez Ahmed Fez. And our overall winner of 18 and under is Sarah Jilani, Speak by Fez Ahmed Fez, and Time by Javed Akhtar. So we had some really bright sparks enter our competition. Thank you so much and congratulations. You did great jobs. I believe now we're going to hear some poetry.
Hi, my name is Safi. I translated a poem from Urdu.
My name is Bruno and I translated a poem from Urdu.
Hello, my name is Daimonas and I like to translate a poem from Urdu language.
The most challenging part of the translation was when there's one word in Urdu but 2 or 3 words in English. Sometimes I had to choose from 3 words. One of the words didn't make sense in that sentence, but 2 did. And I had to choose, and sometimes that was quite hard.
I like this poem because it's about a rainbow, and I thought it would be harder than it actually was, and I did better than I expected.
I really like this poem because there is a rainbow, and it makes me feel relaxed. The most interesting part of the poem is the fairy and lots of different bright colors.
There is a fairy with many colours. A little bit is green, a little bit is blue, a little bit is red, and there is a little bit of yellow in her. The rain comes and showers on her. Her job is complete. Soon after the rain is gone, she comes and sees an entry to a hiding place. Then, in a moment, she goes in to hide inside, and what she does is done. Ask her name, what is it? The world is hers now that her work is done.
Hi, my name is Faiz.
Hello, my name is Manal.
Hi, my name is Aman.
I chose this poem because I immediately recognized it as my grandfather's favourite. However, I like it because of the message that it is trying to convey using a range of metaphors.
I chose to translate this poem because it is a beautiful poem and I wanted to be able to enjoy it in English.
The most challenging words to translate for me were kafnu and dahane. I could not use the literal meaning for these words, so I searched for synonyms that actually go best with it.
The poem is called Ranjish Hi Sehi by Ahmed Faraz. If it is grief, let it torture my heart. Please come, even if it is to abandon me again. Give some regard for how much I love you. Please come someday to console me. Even if we have not had much interaction, please come for the sake of custom and society. How many people can I tell my sadness at being apart? If you are mad at me, come just for the sake of this world. For a long time, I have been deprived of company. Come again, my beloved, even if it is to only make me cry. Even now, I have some hope. So come, even if it's to extinguish the candle flame.
My name is Sarah and I translated 2 poems from Urdu.
My name is Lucas Ali Hassan.
My name is Ayun Amanda and I translated 2 poems from Urdu.
The first poem that I translated is Bor by Faiz Ahmed Faiz. I chose to translate this poem because it's very powerful and I wanted to see if I could keep this power through its translation. The second poem I translated was called Waqt by Javed Akhtar. I really like this poem because it's very beautiful and filled with so much imagery.
This poem intrigues me because it is the longing for peace through violence against the most oppressive systems of society. But the poet expresses his profound desire for the betterment of the whole of mankind, thereby creating a masterpiece.
The first poem that I translated is Parinde ki aankh khul jati hai by Sara Shagufta. I really like the poem for its poignancy and underlying melancholic strain, which I carried within my heart when I first read it, and which lives on. The second poem that I translated is Inhidam by Nahid Rana. I chose to translate this poem because of the simplicity in its composition, and yet hard-hitting message on the fragility of existence.
Speak by Faiz Ahmed Faiz. Speak, for your lips are free. Speak, for your tongue is still yours. Your fine body belongs to you. Speak, for your life is still yours. Look inside the blacksmith's forge. The fire is strong, the iron red hot. The locks have begun to open, the chains are breaking loose. Speak, this little time is still enough. Before the end of your life or voice, speak, for the truth is still alive. Speak, say what you need to say.
Wonderful. And it's a real tribute to you, Sascha, I think, to see sort of the range of poems that you put together in that booklet that everybody chose their entries from. So we've almost reached the end of this evening. There's one final recording that we wanted to share with you, which is a conversation between Sascha and 2 of those winning translators who you've just met in that video. We really wanted to hear a little bit sort of behind the scenes about what the experience was like for those young people translating Urdu. And so Sascha very kindly interviewed them last week, and you're going to be able to watch that recording now.
Hello, I'm Sascha Aurora, the Urdu Spotlight judge this year for the Stephen Spender Prize 2021. And I'm very pleased to be here with our 18 and under winner and commendee to ask a few questions about their process. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So who or what led you to try to translate from Urdu initially? And can you tell us a little bit about the journey and what part, others may have played?
I think with Urdu, like it's had quite a big influence on my life because like even though I like grew up in England mostly, my parents quite like they try to keep Urdu in our lives a lot. Like I did an Urdu GCSE outside of school, and my dad, he writes Urdu poetry, so it was quite like a big thing.
Since I'm South Asian, I almost felt like it was part of my responsibility to kind of promote South Asian voices and South Asian languages, even though I don't actually speak Urdu. But since I also have Pakistani friends and my mum has Pakistani colleagues at work, it was kind of a team effort.
What made you choose these particular poems?
So I think Ball I recognized from beforehand, like I think I've heard it before. So and I quite like the poem anyways because it's quite like a powerful poem. It's really nice. And then I came across Wacht for the first time, like as I was reading through. But I don't know, I just really liked it. It was a very beautiful poem.
They had the effect where after you read it, you felt like letting out a sigh. And that's something that I admired in both of them. It's just the physical kind of impact it had on me afterwards too.
Can you just tell us now, as the last question, is just a little bit about your sort of process? Just, you know, did you make a mechanical translation first? Just a little bit. And keep in mind that this may inspire other young people like yourself for future, translation prizes.
So first of all, I kind of, like I said, I kind of like looked through the poems and like picked the ones that I really liked. And then I went through and I kind of did like a loose translation, I guess, like leaving out some of the bits that I wasn't completely sure on and like not focusing too much on like the precise wording of things because that can be quite tricky. And then just kind of rereading through to check where it flowed and where it sounded a bit strange and where it made sense and things. So just kind of going back over it and re-editing it to make sure you've kind of got what the Urdu poem is trying to say in your English translation.
Since I can't read Urdu, I did use an online dictionary sort of translator called Rekta, which was recommended. So by using that, I was able to, pick out each word, what it means. And since I do have a rough understanding of Hindi, that really helped.
Well done, both of you, and we'll see you at the prize. Thank you so much for giving us this time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Iona and Sarah, for sharing that. It's really nice to especially to end with that advice, sort of as we launch off into a new year of translating poetry. Thank you to everybody who's taken part this evening. I'm really pleased now to hand over to Jonathan Hayward, who's Chair of Trustees at the Stephen Spender Trust, for some final words.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlotte. Thank you all very much. I think to echo what Samantha said earlier, we've all drunk deep from the fire hose of poetry tonight over the last hour. We've perhaps drunk slightly less deep than the poor judges who clearly had to swallow gallons and gallons of the stuff. And as one of our prize winners tonight said, choosing is quite hard, even when you're simply choosing between two synonyms for the same word. So choosing between hundreds, if not thousands, of different translations really is hard work. And I think we've really all got to thank Khairani Barokka, Daljit, Nagra, Samantha Schnee, and Sascha Aurora Akhtar for doing so much choosing and turning that potential drowning amount of coming from the fire hose into something a bit more manageable that we could all really enjoy and appreciate. I've got to thank the funders and the donors and the patrons who made all of this work possible. Charlotte mentioned them earlier in the evening, and some people might think, oh, why are we talking about money? This is about poetry. But the truth is, without the money, the poetry wouldn't be possible. The prize wouldn't be possible. These translations wouldn't have been given this platform. We wouldn't have been able to get together tonight. So I think what we do at the Stephen Spender Trust, if you look at it from one angle, is to try to translate money to poetry, or to try to translate all of the support that we receive into meaningful activities on behalf of poets and translators and children and young people across the UK. And we do that because of the incredibly hard work of Charlotte, who you've heard from this evening, her colleagues Stacey and Jamie, my fellow trustees, Alistair, Isabel, Libby and Ben. And this evening in particular, we were helped out by Rosie Eyre, who you haven't seen, who has been very busy behind the scenes, our student Gemma, who helped to put together a lot of the video content, and Gary on the Zoom, who was keeping us all on and off screen at the right moments. But I mean, most of all, really, those of us at the Trust want to thank those of you who entered the prize this year, not just the winners and the commendees who've been thanked already, but literally all of you, all the thousands of poets and translators who shared with us your, in some cases, very intimate work. It's a very self-exposing thing to do, to share a poem with other people, and we really appreciate and value that. And we also appreciate and value the people around you, the parents, the carers, the teachers who support you and help to shape those poems. I'm sure many of them were written at kitchen tables early in the morning before school or late at night, and that takes families and friends and partners to make that possible. Everything you've seen tonight will be available on the Spender Trust YouTube channel. It will also, as Charlotte said, be shared in the booklet. Some of that will be sent out to those of you who are here tonight. It will be available on the website. And please, when you're on the website, do not forget to sign up to the mailing list so that we can tell you about everything else that we're up to over the year ahead, and so that you can be the first to hear about next year's Stephen Spender Prize, where I can tell you now that our spotlight, which has been shining on Urdu poetry this year, will be shining on Romanian poetry next year. And I'm particularly interested to see what comes from that. Romanian, often the forgotten Romance language of Europe, a very particular and rich political and cultural history, but a literature of which I am sadly very ignorant. And I'm looking forward to coming back this time next year with my notebook to learn and listen and enjoy translations from Romanian. To finish tonight, I'm doing something that's becoming a tradition at the Stephen Spender Prize. I'm going to invite everybody here who has got access to their, I think that includes the judges, the Stephen Spender Trust team, the winners, the commendees, to turn on your cameras, please. I hope I will now start to see lots of faces on screen. I don't know if that's happening or not. But I think what we want to do, if this is going to work, is we all want to say thank you to all of you who've entered the prize and made it possible. And we're going to do that in a language of our choosing. So let me count you all down. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Merci. And Auf Wiedersehen.